Welcome to today's webinar on strategies for those grieving during the holidays. This webinar is sponsored by the Northeast and Caribbean Mental Health Technology Transfer Center, or MHTTC, housed at Rutgers School of Health Professions in the Department of Psychiatric Rehabilitation and Counseling Professions. My name is Kathy, and I'm the project coordinator of this center and will be facilitating the webinar today. The MHTTC is funded by SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, to enhance the capacity of the behavioral health and other related workforces to deliver evidence-based and empirically supported practices to individuals with mental illnesses. Please visit the MHTTC Network website for additional information at mhttcnetwork.org. And if you're interested in staying up to date with the events and products the Northeast and Caribbean is providing, please sign up to receive our email communication. You can sign up at the bit.ly link provided on the screen. Following the webinar, you will be asked to complete a brief survey. We value this feedback and use it to improve our activities and inform future activities. The surveys are also important because our continued funding is linked to the completion of these surveys. So we thank you in advance for your feedback. We also want to let you know that this webinar is being recorded and will be posted to our website along with the PowerPoint slides in the next couple of days. We also encourage you to interact with our presenters during the webinar by using the chat feature. Please post any comments or questions you have in the chat, and I will collect your questions as we go and ask them of the presenter during the Q&A times toward the end of the presentation. During the webinar, our presenter may pose questions to you, so please use the chat feature to answer those questions. This presentation was prepared for the MHTTC network under a cooperative agreement from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, or SAMHSA. All material appearing in this presentation, except that taken directly from copyrighted sources, is in the public domain and may be reproduced or copied without permission from SAMHSA or the authors. Citation of the source is appreciated. At the time of this presentation, Eleanor McCants-Katz is serving as SAMHSA Assistant Secretary. The opinions expressed herein are the views of the presenters and do not reflect the official position of the Department of Health and Human Services or SAMHSA. No official support or endorsement of DHHS, SAMHSA, for the opinions described in this presentation is intended or should be inferred. Now let's begin our webinar. We have with us Douglas Smith. Douglas has been the lead instructor for the University of Wisconsin's Grief Support Services Certificate Program, which has trained over 600 healthcare professionals in 39 states and 14 countries. He has conducted extensive grief training workshops in all 50 states and internationally. He also has extensive personal experiences related to grief. He also participated in our MHTTC Grief Virtual Learning Institute held in September and November of this year. We will provide links to those recordings in a follow-up email after this presentation. Now I will turn it over to you, Doug, and welcome. Oops, there we go.
Okay, thank you. We're going to look at some strategies, some tools, some activities for people that are grieving during the holidays. The holiday time for the grieving is usually a time of immense sadness because we remember all the times we had together during those holidays of the person that is now deceased. But I want to present these activities in a way of reframing those holidays to be not times of sadness and missing the person that is no longer with us physically, but times of celebrating their presence, their ongoing presence with us in those holidays. If you turn to the next slide, the first activity I want to present, I'm entitled I, See, and You activity. And I came up with this as a result of an interaction with a client named Jason. Jason was in the 4th grade and his mother had died. And Jason went to his school and his class, and he was telling the students, his fellow students, that his mother had died, and he said that she was now in heaven. And one of his classmates, a boy that Jason really liked, said to Jason, Jason, there's no such thing as heaven. Your mom is in the ground and she will always be there. Jason was brought to me by his dad because Jason was so upset about what this boy had said at school. And I was meeting with Jason. His dad was out in the waiting room. And I said to Jason, I said, I never met your mom, Jason, but I met your dad. And I noticed that he has blonde hair and you have brown. Where'd you get that brown hair? And he said, well, my mom had brown hair. And I said, Jason, your dad has blue eyes and you have brown. What's that all about? And he said, well, I got my brown eyes from my mom. And I said, Jason, many people have different ideas about what happens to us after we die, but none of us really know for sure because none of us have ever died. And I said, Jason, my beliefs are kind of like yours, but people have different beliefs about that. But one thing we know for sure about where your mom is right now, and that is that we know that she's in you. She's in your thoughts. She's in your memories. And Jason, she's even physically inside you. She's in your hair, in your eyes. She's in your entire physical being. And Jason, I want you to remember that whenever you look in the mirror and you look at your brown hair and your brown eyes, I want you to remember that your mom is inside you, in your thoughts, in your memories, even physically inside you. And no matter what anyone says, no one can deny that your mom is inside you. And I want you to always remember that whenever you look in the mirror. Now, the activity that I want to present, this I see in you activity, is one that could be used during any holiday where somebody might be missing their loved one, is that with the family, you would have one person at a time sit in the center of a circle surrounded by the other family members. And people go around and say what they see in this person from the person who has died. It might be in their hair or their eyes. It might be in their voice. It might be in a particular interest they have. They like the same music. It might be in a way that they walk or talk. It could be in any number of ways. But what you do as a family is that you go around and say, I see this in you. You walk just like mom walks, etc., etc. And try to do at least 4 things with each person of different characteristics or physical traits that you see in this person that were present in the person that is dying. The next activity, if you could turn the slide now, we'll look at 3 activities in this slide. The first is a remembrance collage. And what the family would do is that they would gather with a stack of magazines on the particular holiday that they're celebrating. It could be the person who has died's birthday. It could be a Thanksgiving, a Christmas, a Hanukkah. It could be any holiday. But you gather, it could be New Year's Eve. gather with a stack of magazines, and everybody cuts out words and pictures that they associate with the person who has died. And everybody forms this giant collage of these words and pictures. And then everyone goes around one at a time and talks about their contribution to that total picture of the collage. The holiday tablecloth. This could be done on a Thanksgiving, for example, would be a good time to do that. It could be done during a Passover meal. It could be done the day after Ramadan, the day of Eid, in which many times when we have those holidays that focus on meals, we have a special tablecloth that we bring out for that meal. And if you don't do that on a normal basis, you can, with this activity, start that tradition by bringing out a special tablecloth. And everybody that is at the table signs their name somewhere on that tablecloth, so that every time that holiday tablecloth is brought out, you've got not only the signatures of those that are seated there today, but the signatures of everyone that has sat there in the past. And if you want to start this tradition and include someone that has already died, just find a piece of paper that has their signature on it and trace their signature on the tablecloth. And it's a way of communicating to everyone that is at the table, this person is still with us. It's a different presence, but they're still with us. They're at this table. They're sharing in this meal. They're with us, and they always will be with us. On the next activity, on a gift-giving holiday, this could be Christmas, Hanukkah, or another gift-giving event. We'll use Christmas as an example. You'll have everybody before that Christmas go off alone and think about what this person who has died has given you that you're most thankful for. It's many times an intangible gift. This person gave me love or courage or inspiration, but write on a piece of paper what you're most thankful for having received from this person, whether it is tangible or intangible. Write that on a piece of paper. Put that paper in a box, wrap the box, and put that present along with all the others under the tree if it's for Christmas. And then the first gift that everyone opens in the family is that gift that they have received from the person who has died. It's once again, as with that tablecloth, it's a way of saying this person is still with us. This person is in fact still giving to us. It's just in a different way now. It's just in a different way. If you could turn to the next slide. Sometimes we can even invent a very personal celebratory ritual. One of the things that I do with my mom who has deceased, my mother, her name is Marjorie, and the last 10 years of her life, she lived in a retirement community in California, in the county of Sonoma. And my mom and I enjoy very much drinking wine. And whenever I would visit her at the retirement community, we would often, during a day, go to one or two wine tasting events. And my mother and I have many things in common, but one of them is that we both have something called familial tremor. It's a handshaking. It's sometimes called essential tremor. And one of the reasons why we enjoy wine tasting is the fact that at those tastings, the host will put just a little bit of wine in the glass. And so the wine's not going to be spilled by either my mom or I. And so on many holidays, I'll do a toast to my mom with some wine. And the wine that I'll use is some wine that I found from a winery in Oregon. It's a Pinot Noir. And the vineyard it comes from is called Marjorie's Vineyard. And so I'll pour a little wine in a glass from Marjorie's Vineyard and toast to my mom with that Pinot Noir. Another example of creating, inventing a celebration ritual I heard about was with this girl named Alice. And Alice died when she was only 4 years old. But when she was 2 or 3 years old, she would go to birthday parties. And when people were singing a happy birthday song, Alice thought they were singing happy birthday. And so during those birthdays that she would go to when she was 2 or 3, when people started singing, she would run around the room flapping her arms, singing happy birthday to you. And when Alice died, several parents of children that remember Alice, they would go to Alice's gravesite on her birthday, and the adults would go around, dance around the tombstone, flapping their arms and singing happy birthday to you, Alice, happy birthday to you. The next slide. Another activity that can be done is something called a virtual dream. This is something that I came up with. I had at one time used to teach a course in dreams at a college. And I liked teaching that course because people are able to talk about things that they experience in dreams that they normally would not talk about if they were in a non-dream form. For example, if I had a client that I was counseling and I said to the client, I want you to keep a journal of all your thoughts and activities related to sex, and I'd like you to share that journal with me on a regular basis. Well, obviously, I would get a lot of resistance to such a request. Or if I were to say to someone, I want you to keep a journal about all the times you talk to people that are dead, and whether they say anything back to you in return. And I'd like you to share that with me on a regular basis. Well, once again, I would get resistance. But people love to talk about their dreams. And what's in their dreams? Sex, dead people. It's all there. But the fact that it's in the form of a dream makes it easier for them to share. So I came up with this concept of a virtual dream. And what you do with a virtual dream is that you somehow figure out whatever issue somebody might be struggling with, and you come up with 6 items that might be related to that issue or that struggle that they're having. I used to, when I was doing workshops around the country, one of my bigger clients was an outfit called Hazelton Drug and Alcohol Treatment Center. And I was asked to do a retreat for the residents of their residential treatment program. And I would do this periodically. I think I did it once every 6 months with whatever the current residents were in that treatment program. And I was meeting with these people for just one day, and I needed them to do some in-depth sharing with me who they had never met before. So I would do a virtual dream with them. The 6 items I would do with them because of this addiction, I would have: 1 would be yourself, 2 would be your drug of choice, 3, a sad person, 4, an angry person, 5, a teaching moment with a child, and then 6, a fortune teller. And people, I would give them 8 minutes to write as quickly as possible a short story that included those 6 items. And so in the 8-minute time, they would write the short story that would include those 6 items. And I would say, just be as creative as possible. And dream theorists, they say that they all have different theories on what things mean, but all dream theorists seem to say that every item in a dream is an aspect of yourself. I mean, the dream is coming from you and nobody else. And so same thing with this virtual dream. It's your short story. Everything that you wrote in that short story is coming from you. And with the people at Hazelton, within them was their drug of choice. Within them was a sad person. Within them was an angry person. Internally, they had that inner child, or they might think in terms of a younger sibling that they would like to keep from being addicted, and then that fortune teller, their future. And so these people, these addicts who had never met me before, were talking about their internal sadness and anger and that internal child, etc. With somebody who is grieving, they would do a virtual dream with these 6 items: you, your lost loved one, a reunion party, invited guests, a gift given to your loved one, and a gift given from your loved one. Give somebody 8 minutes to write as quickly as possible. And this could be done as a family. Every family member writes their own virtual dream in that 8-minute time. And then people share the dream. And people come up with some really interesting stuff that can be talked about by the family. Let me share with you the dream that I wrote with these 6 items. And the loved one I'm using is my daughter, Marin. I've lost 2 daughters to death, but I used Marin in this dream. And I remember I'm given just 8 minutes to write this. I somehow find myself dead, yet also alive. I'm at a big party in a strange land, not on this planet. There are all sorts of people all around me. Everyone is happy. Some are laughing, some are singing. I see my daughter Marin, and with her are her children, Diarzi and Autry. The 2 boys are here right now, alive on this planet, but somehow are back in this new place as well. And there are other people who are both here and back on Earth. My partner, Tara, and her children. And there are those of us who just live in this new place, no longer living back on Earth. My mom, my dad, my brother Dean, and everyone is giving gifts to one another. Marin comes up to me and gives me a large book. It's a scrapbook of memories of our times together, so I will never forget them. And I give her a return hug, a special hug, a hug that never ends. In fact, that hug is still happening even after I write these last words of my virtual dream. And so with that virtual dream, we can talk about how it's different from other people's dreams, the importance of the particular gift that we receive and give, etc. And that's an activity that can be done at any holiday to convey that ongoing presence. Next slide. Another activity is a letter to finish the unfinished. And whenever someone dies, we have a lot of unfinished business. There might have been things we said or did that we wish we could take back. There might have been things we wanted to say or do, but we never did. There might have been certain communication that we were in the midst of when this person died. There can be any number of unfinished activities related to the dying. And I have the family or family members write a letter to finish the unfinished. And in that letter, you would address the person by name. You would start by, first of all, and the order here is important. You would start by giving some apologies for things you might have said or done to this person. You then offer some forgiveness for things this person might have said or done to you. And the third thing that you would add is some pleasant memories you have of this person to express those pleasant memories. Some wishes that you wish could have happened between you and that other person, particular things you might have been able to do together. And then finally, a saying of goodbye. I'm going to read to you the letter that I wrote to my dad to finish the unfinished. But I first of all need to tell you a little bit about my dad. So you'll understand this letter. If you were to look into a picture dictionary under the word macho, you'd see a photograph of my dad. My dad had graduated from the Naval Academy. He had fought in the Second World War and in the Korean War. And when there were no more wars to fight, he went to work for Caterpillar tractors, beginning to get the picture of my dad. I was the oldest of 5 boys, Doug, Dave, Don, Dan, Dean. My dad said, if there's going to be a 6th, it'll be named Damn It. But whenever my dad wanted anything, he would yell out the name Fred as loud as he could. And he knew that, all of us knew that whenever he called out the name Fred, it didn't matter who got there, but somebody needed to get there real quick. That was my dad. And as I was growing up with my dad, I never saw my parents kiss. I never saw them touch. He was definitely this macho person. But let me read this letter to you that I wrote to my dad. And one of the things that I refer to in this letter, or behind this letter, was the fact that one of the most difficult times I had, or saddest times I had with my dad, was when I was in grade school, and my first report card, I think it was in 5th grade, my first report card had 2 D's on it. And my dad said, Doug, if you can bring those 2 D's up to 2 B's by the next report card, I'll give you $5. Well, I brought them up to 2 B's. I showed my dad the report card, and his response was, good job, Doug, good job. He'd forgotten about the $5, and I was so hurt, so hurt. I had bad grades all the way through high school. I thought, well, I'll show him. I'll show him. But just writing this letter, things can happen to people. You don't have to share the letter, but just writing it. Here's the letter I wrote to my dad. Dear Dad, I have been reviewing our relationship, and there are some things I want to say to you, things I need to say. Dad, I apologize for not being all you wanted me to be, not getting good grades all the way through high school, often not having common sense, having an affair in my 30s, losing my job, losing my mental health, not being the best I could be. I apologize for that. The reference to losing my mental health, I was in a mental institution for a while. Dad, I apologize for stealing some money from you when you had entrusted me with your finances. I apologize for violating your trust. Dad, I apologize for not adequately telling you how much you meant to me and how much I loved you, not showing you the love that I felt. I apologize. And Dad, I forgive you for forgetting that promise you made to me in 5th grade. That promise meant a lot to me, Dad, but I forgive you. And Dad, I forgive you for your unapproachableness, your sternness, your scowl. I forgive you. And Dad, I forgive you for treating Mom so poorly, how you belittled her so much and didn't give her credit for all she did for us as a family. And Dad, I forgive you for dying, for leaving me. I forgive you for that. And Dad, I want you to know that I'm proud of you for all that you accomplished in your life, your prestige you achieved, the financial discipline you exercised, the goals you made and kept, your success. I'm proud of all of that, Dad. And Dad, I want you to know that I love you for making me feel important. When you took me on that business trip, when I was only in 3rd grade, when you came to my high school football games, when you supported me when I decided to not play college football, and when you supported me in my career choices, and when you fully accepted me after my mental breakdown. And Dad, most especially at my brother Dean's funeral, when you finally told me that you loved me. Thank you, Dad. Thank you for all of that. And since you've died, there's been much in my life that I've wanted to share with you, my partner, Tara, my grandchildren, my new career. Dad, there has been many times I've wanted you to be here with me. I want to talk to you. I want to just be with you. But I know you're no longer here, Dad, and I must accept that. Dad, I love you. I've always loved you. And I need to say goodbye now. Goodbye, Dad. Goodbye. This activity can be a way of somehow finishing things up with the dying person. And this can be an event that can happen during a holiday, as long as we pair it with one of those celebratory events as well. And realize that this letter does not have to, it might be too personal to share with the rest of the family, but just writing that letter before doing that celebration might be a good thing to do. Next slide. Another thing we can do as a family during holidays that makes things on the lighter side and takes us away from that sadness is to share a happy or funny dream that we might have had about the person who has now died. And many times we have some sad dreams or even some terrifying dreams about the departed person. But to just share during this activity, to just share a happy or a funny dream. And that's all that people would share. One of the dreams that I like to share about my dad is related to the fact of his always giving me advice, and he would give me some good advice. And with my dad, before he died, I think he was in 1 in 10 dreams. But since he's died, he's in 1 in 3 dreams. And he's often giving me very practical advice in the dream. And I often talk to my dad in the dreams, and I ask him questions, and he answers me in those dreams. But one dream that I like to share that involved my dad is that I'm standing at the bottom of a skyscraper. Now, this is a dream and it takes a dream form. So at the bottom of the skyscraper, and I look way up the skyscraper, and there's this woman on a ledge getting ready to jump off the ledge. And she's not wearing any clothes. And I decide to go up and save her. And I've got these suction cups on my hands and my knees. And I'm climbing up this skyscraper to get to this woman. And I'm passing on my right, there's this scaffold with a man dipping a brush in a huge vat of white paint, just a huge vat of white paint. And it's my dad. And I look over to my dad and I said, "Dad, what are you doing up here?" And he says, "What, Doug? I'm painting the skyscraper." And he said, "What are you doing up here?" And I said, "Well, Dad, look at that woman up there. I'm going up to save her so that she doesn't jump off the ledge." And my dad shakes his head and he says, "Doug, that's kind of stupid." "What do you mean, Dad?" "Doug, why don't you go into the skyscraper, take the elevator up, and then go to the window and save her that way?" And I said, Dad, I've got to do it my way. I've got to do it my way. So I leave my dad and I continue to go up the skyscraper. But the further I get up, the suction cups are beginning to loosen. And finally, I just fall off the skyscraper and land in that big vat of white paint. And I get up and I get white paint all over me, and I'm laughing and my dad's laughing. And he says to me, "Doug, women don't want superheroes. All they want is somebody to make sense and to be real. So please don't try to be a superhero. Just make sense and be real." And so that's the kind of dream that I have with my dad, where he gives me practical advice. I want to conclude this presentation before we get to some possible questions. I want to conclude with a poem that I have found to be very meaningful in the processing of my own grief. And I have found it to be helpful to others in processing their grief. And it's a poem called "Playing with 3 Strings." And it's written, the poem is written by a Rabbi Harold Schulweis. Playing with 3 strings. We have seen Yitzhak Perlman, who walks the stage with braces on both legs, on 2 crutches. He takes his seat, unhinges the clasp of his legs, tucking one leg back, extending the other, laying down his crutches and placing the violin under his chin. On one occasion, one of his violin strings broke. The audience grew silent, but the violinist did not leave the stage. He signaled the maestro, and the orchestra began its part. The violinist played with power and intensity on only 3 strings. With 3 strings, he modulated, changed, and recomposed the piece in his head. He retuned the strings to get different sounds, turn them upward and downward. That audience screamed delight, applauded their appreciation, asked later how he had accomplished this feat. The violinist answered, "It is my task to make music with what remains. A legacy mightier than a concert. Make music with what remains. Complete the song left for us to sing. Transcend the loss and play it out with heart, soul, and might, with all the remaining strength within us." Playing with 3 strings. Next slide. That is by Harold Schulweis. I'm now going to open it up to any particular questions that people might have regarding this presentation or working with the grieving. But the emphasis here in this presentation was somehow finding activities that we can do during the holidays to change them, to reframe them from times of sadness related to the person who has died to times of celebrating their ongoing presence with us. Okay, any questions? And if I could have somebody ask those questions from the chat.
Absolutely. So Doug, a question that is in our Q&A right now is, do you have any activities that addresses the COVID-19 pandemic? For example, families are not going to be able to support one another this Christmas.
Yeah, I think that any of the activities that I mentioned here can be done via Zoom. I think that would be a way of doing the activities as a family. I kind of look at the holidays now because of the internet as a time in which we might be able to gather more members of the family to participate in the holiday traditions and activities, because many times in the past, one family member who might live 1,000 miles away from some of the other family members can't break away to come, or needs to be with their own immediate family to celebrate rather than the scattered and extended family. And so I think that this time, COVID-19, once again can be reframed as a time in which we can gather more members of the family for that celebration and include people that are in quite a distance and are unfortunately not able to normally attend the celebration.
So another question in the Q&A, Doug, is could you explain the activity again, the one about putting slips of paper in boxes and opening the gifts related to what our loved ones have given us?
Yes. what you would do a couple days before, we'll use Christmas once again as that example, a couple days before Christmas, every member of the family would go off alone and each member would think of what they're most thankful for having received from the person who has died. And it can be a tangible gift, maybe a photograph of them that you now have on your desk, or an intangible gift. This person showed me what love is all about. I learned through this person how to assert myself as an individual. So you would just write on a piece of paper what you're most thankful for having received from the person that has died, whether it's tangible or intangible. Put that paper in a box, wrap the box, and put that present along with all the other presents under the tree. And then the first present that everybody in the family opens up and shares with the rest of the family, they'll open up the box that they wrap and they'll share what they're most thankful for having received from the person that has died. And it's a way of communicating that this person is still with us during this holiday. This person is even still giving to us through this ongoing gift of that person, the benefit that we have received from that person.
Okay, another question for you, Doug. And just before I ask you this question, I'm just going to let participants know that I'm going to share the QR code for evaluation while you're answering these questions. So if they can just scan the QR code and do the evaluation. However, the question is, these are great activities. I am curious if you feel they would benefit a dual diagnosed individual. Would an intellectual diagnosed individual take away the right message?
I don't know. Some of these activities, with any activity, you've got to adjust it, tweak it a little bit to meet the particular individual, because all of us process things in different ways. All of us grieve in different ways. One of the things that I mentioned in the workshop I did in September was the fact that there are, we usually think of grieving people as grieving emotionally. And these are intuitive grievers. And these are people that grieve through their emotions. But some people, which I label and other therapists label instrumental grievers, are people who grieve through actions or cognitions. And we need to realize that some people don't want to deal with feelings. Some people don't want to deal with thoughts, or might be unable to process things intellectually. And so we would need to adjust activities for this person's particular personality or grieving style, whether they're intuitive or instrumental, whether they have some kind of history that might affect some of these activities. For example, another thing that might happen is that when you're using that letter to finish the unfinished, that I mentioned to have forgiveness as part of that letter. Well, with some people, forgiveness might not be a good thing to do. I'm thinking especially somebody that has a history of perhaps being abused by this person who has died, some form of abuse. And to forgive that person might be just another way in which I have to submit that other person. So that submit myself to that other person. So that activity for this person who has that history of abuse would have to be adjusted. And so each one of these activities, as well as we know, with any counseling tool, we need to adjust that tool to the person in front of us, as well as given their history, and then also their style of how they process things, how they grieve, etc.
Okay, Doug, another question is, a family member lost a very young child who was born in the same year and month as another family member child. How does the family celebrate special occasions of the living child without having such sadness from the loss of the deceased child?
That's a difficult one. I think that I guess just off the top of my head, I would, with the deceased person, I would have an honorary birthday the day before, in which everybody other than the person whose birthday it's going to be in reality the next day, have the rest of the family do some processing that day before and call it an honorary birthday or a pre-birthday party for this deceased person, and then focus everything, get rid of all that extra stuff the day before, and then focus on the celebration during that birthday of the person who is still with us.
Thank you, Doug. Another question. I have a coworker whose wife has passed recently. We are not close, but I want to give something. It's a male, 54, and married over 20 years. He confided his concerns about her health. I just don't know how to approach or speak.
Whenever I have clients that I'm working with, that I have some uncertainties as to what to say or what to do, or if I'm have somebody that I've become aware that they have lost someone and I want to send a card to them or something like that. I'll often, before doing whatever I do or sending whatever I send or choosing a card, to contact somebody who is close to this individual and say, you know, this is what I want to do. I want to visit this person, or I want to send a card to this person. Is there anything that you feel that would help me in being able to do something that is appropriate for this person, and to make sure that I'm not doing something inappropriate? Can you give me some feedback on that before I go visit or before I write this message on this card? That if there is some doubt about that, to check with somebody that's close to this person first and get some suggestions on what might be, what I might be able to do and what I should probably not do.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Another question. I will be facilitating a single session grief group at my house of worship on Sunday. Is there a specific activity you'd recommend for this event with unrelated folks experiencing a multitude of losses?
I would not, especially if this is a one-time event or first meeting, I would not get into storytelling initially, having people share openly a lot of things. I think one activity that could be an icebreaker and keep everybody from centering on one person, but also being a way of introducing the topic, is to have initially had it a two-part activity. Initially have people share one word that is related to their loss. It can be a feeling word or a non-feeling word, but to just share one word that comes to mind that's related to your feelings of loss. That would be the first part of the activity. And then the second activity would be one word of hope or one word of determination for how you want to heal from this loss. And then you would go around and have people share those single words related to healing or hope. But to get people to share initially those things that might be related to sadness or anger or confusion or struggling or pain or troubles, so that people know the seriousness of the event and the seriousness of what's about ready to occur in that grief workshop. And then secondly, those words of hope and healing to give people a direction of where you want the workshop to go.
Thank you, Doug. Another question, what if it is a recent loss and too difficult or sad to think about the deceased person not being present?
Say that one more time. Yeah.
What if it is a recent loss and too difficult or sad to think about the deceased person not being present?
Yeah, that's hard to say. That sometimes a loss. Once again, it's this individual grieving person. Sometimes people can be mourning for years, and that pain, that wound, is still fresh. And with some people, they're ready to process fairly quickly, and they want to process. I like to say to counselors that do not pressure people to do any activity, do not pressure people to be at a certain stage or a certain point in acceptance. Allow that person to be where they are and be able to express where they are and not force them to do any activity or any sharing they're not ready to do. And when I was in the mental hospital and I had all these confusing thoughts and feelings, what I most wanted was not somebody to tell me I needed to be someplace else. What I needed from somebody, from a counselor, was someone to say, Doug, I accept you where you are now, what you're feeling now, and what you're ready for now. And if a counselor does that for me, I'm then ready to accept from that counselor in the future some kind of activity or a request that that counselor makes of where they would like me to be or what they would like me to do. But to first accept that person and not give them any activity to do if you know they're not ready, but just to communicate. I realize you're feeling this as a fresh loss. Tell me more about that freshness that you feel, that what is going on right now, and then fully accept that with all your counseling skills.
Okay, and Doug, we have time for, we're almost to the hour, but we have one more question, so I really want to try to answer it. What advice do you have for a family that is dealing with anticipatory grief due to a terminal diagnosis of one of the family members?
Yeah, this anticipatory grief is it's just as real as any other form of grief. You're feeling the loss as if it is happening now. I mean, you're feeling it now, even though it might be a couple days from now or a couple weeks from now. And any grief, whether it's anticipatory grief or any other form of grief, you can use grief tools that are made that you can find in any grief book, or tools that I talked about in the workshops in September and November, and just slightly adjust them to address that anticipatory grief, because it's as real can be. It's as real as any grief. And we need to have tools to deal with that anticipatory grief. Sometimes those tools can be, depending upon the relationship with the person that is terminally ill, they can be done with that person or separate from that person. But I think it's important to deal with that anticipatory grief as a family, because it will make that eventual grief easier to deal with if you've addressed the anticipatory grief first.
So Doug, we'd like to thank you for this time. We'd like to thank all of our participants and acknowledge the wonderful questions and encouraging feedback that you provided. And we wish everyone to stay safe and healthy in the upcoming holidays. And Doug, I'm going to let you have a final comment to close our session tonight.
Okay, well, I also wish everyone some good holidays, and remember that poem, with all your strength and all your heart. Continue to play the music which is meant for you to play.
Thank you, Doug, and good night, everyone.